Hello guys, my name is Marco. Hope you guys are having a wonderful day. Make sure you get your drinks and stuff like that because, it's going to be a really cool, interesting video. In today's video, I want to talk to you guys about, when it comes to lighting, should you get a light that is blue to light up your subject or whatever you're going to film on, or should you just buy white light, get some gels and just put it up in here to get that form of light? Or should you just put a blue or green type of filter? Or should you do the color grading and add that filter into your editing software? Now let's start with the editing in your editing software. One of the things I will say is that if you're gonna go that route, editing and doing like all those things are very good when it comes to editing lights, shadows and stuff like that. But when it comes to color, it's supposed to add a certain style to it, kind of like Tim Burton's, dark and moody type of style to it, or I forgot his name, Wes Anderson's, Astro World, how like he was very bright and very out there. Is kind of like that. It's to add a certain style. It's not meant for you to really like oh, I'm gonna change the color of the wall and stuff like, which you can do. But if every single scene is gonna picture that wall, or there's gonna be a lot of movement, I wouldn't recommend it. It's kind of like the idea of adding a filter to it to give it like, sometimes you want to give that vintage feel, that Polaroid classic, or you want to make it black and white or something like that. There's that. But when it comes to filming black and white, I will say shooting it in black and white on camera is actually a lot better because you will know how certain colors are going to change when it comes to black and white. Now when it comes to using a gel like this to put it in front of your camera, right? One of the films that will say that it captured this, that did this, is actually The Ring. But it's actually the first one, not the second one. The second one, it's a little bit different, you can tell, but like, I feel like the second one kind of makes it a little bit more horror, and the first one's kind of more like, you can tell by the logo of the title name of the film. It is really interesting, but that's the one. There is a video online where you can check out. We talked about gels and the way that he used them and stuff like that to get certain shots. That is something that you can use. But here's the thing. I went online trying to search some of these to put it on your camera. I found one on Amazon, which the price was like 39 bucks, which is fine. But I have never seen, like I only saw one video about a person that bought it and tried to review it. And I'm just like, why there's no many people except for that one video about The Ring? I don't know. But yeah, the way that you put this into your lens, and basically you're gonna adjust the colors that you have, and then you also adjust other forms of colors, right? And that will eventually affect your image. Now, this is something that you can really do if you want to, and it will give it a certain style to it. But the issue that I have with it is that when you're gonna film every single scene like this, right, it's just every single scene is like that. And when you go ahead and color grade that, it's like every single scene is gonna be the same and none of them are gonna be way different. You know what I mean? And sometimes you might find it difficult because certain colors might not work. So when it comes to using this, certain colors like red, that would be really good. But yellow, on the other hand, is going to create a different color. So if you really want a color that is yellow, you can really you can't use the color yellow because it's going to create orange. And then when you look at it in your film, you don't want orange. So you really need to play around with your colors when it comes to this, right? You want to have this form of color, but then you also want to have a color yellow. You can't because, you know what I mean? So that's the disadvantage when it comes to using stuff like this. Let's talk about using a color, turning on a color, right? Whatever light you have, and then using this to put right here. A lot of people use this, especially on films. Basically, the whole idea of this is that you have a really bright light that has really great, when it comes to Calvin, stuff like that, it's really bright, stuff like that. But then they use something like the gel and kind of creates those things. Because you probably are thinking, should I get a light that has RGB that could do it all, or should I just get one really good light, and then basically get some whole bunch of colored gels like this, and they'll work. Eventually, both of them are gonna be similar, but this is gonna make it so it can look more natural. Like, if you look at this, look at my. I know it's kind of like green, but whatever. You look at my face. There's a lot of white on it, but one of the things you can do is soften this light up, adding a whole bunch of soft like lights and stuff like that, and this kind of creates it like a more natural type of look, right? If you want certain light stuff like that, this will do that, so it will soften it up. You know, it will give certain things soften it up. So that's the one thing I will say with this is that you can use this. It's really great, but then also using this method is actually really great because what if you have a whole bunch of lights and you want them to be different color and you only have one light that's RGB? So there's that. So this is gonna be the more like brighter sense. If you're gone with this method where it's like you have a light and it's RGB and you change it to blue, it's not gonna be as bright as you guys can see. See, like I don't know if you guys can see it, but in my opinion, it's not as bright as the other one. So that is one thing to know, right? If you were gonna use these RGB ones, not gonna be as bright. But if you do use something like this, like a gel system, it is gonna be, you know, it's gonna be a lot more brighter. That's why a lot of times when it comes to filmmaking and stuff like that, they use both, right? They do have one that's RGB, and they just have a whole bunch of these gels or whatever we want to call them. Also, the other thing is that when it comes to using like these are not gels; these are actually the dividers. I bought these at a dollar store, but they kind of sort of act like they were gels. One of the downsides to this is that make sure you keep them in pristine condition because if you don't, they're all gonna be dirty and they're gonna look like kind of like, you know, it's a little bit dirty if you're gonna use them for your lenses. There is a kit, like you said, I found on Amazon, which it'll makes things a lot easier. I also saw one for your phone, which like clips on it, so you could buy that to test it out to see how it is. I don't know if it's cheaper. I feel like it's the same price, man, because you clip it on. There's some other ones that you basically it's like a you know like an ND filter and you put it in there. That one's fine, but I wouldn't recommend those ones because you know ND filters you have to screw it in, right? Always constantly screwing it in. The other one that I saw, it's just like this thing that you put it in your camera and you can just swap out all of these and makes everything a lot easier. So I would recommend that instead of the ND filter. Now there are some out there that are like have this gradient effect, which is really great because it gives it like kind of like a sunset feel, which is great if you're looking for that. But that only works if you're taking photos slash video of the sky or an area where there's the sky and there's a city or you know stuff like that. If you're gonna use that for yourself, it's gonna look weird because it's gonna be like a red gradient or like an orange gradient all the way to like clear. You know, if you're gonna use it for artistically type of sense, that'll be great. But at that point, I wouldn't recommend spending that money on that. You can just do it on your editing software. So yeah. So my thoughts on this is that I do use all of these methods, and I feel like in film world they kind of sort of do, except for like the one that you actually have to get this and put it in your camera because that one is a little bit more like, you know, if you're gonna have to, you know, make entire film like that because certain colors might. And it's not like the entire film gotta make it like that. It's just that if you're gonna make a scene, you know, with certain characters or whatever, you're gonna have to use this for every single thing so it could be coherent. And you also need to think about the colors you're gonna be using. For instance, like if you look at the ring, you know how it is like that. You know, it kind of gives it like green type of color. You don't see that much yellow into it because yellow doesn't. But then you do see the color red. It kind of pops a little bit. So yeah. So one thing you can also do is that you can film it like this and just put everything in any software. Whatever I don't recommend doing is actually in doing this in your editing software. Why? Because it's not going to look natural and you're going to have a hard time. It's better to do it in camera because you want to be able to see what you're filming. One of the things I'm going to do right now is actually I'm going to film this and I'm going to do this thing in different segments with using a color like blue slash green or something like that so you guys can know how it kind of looks like, right? Right, so one is going to be my editing software trying to recreate it. The other one's going to be using this. And the other one's going to be using this light, the blue light, and the also is going to be, you know, doing this. so you guys can see, and it's gonna be the same shot, so you guys can look into it. And by the way, I'm using a Canon R6, and the lens I'm gonna be using is a 50 mil. So yeah, let's get it.